Hi everyone and welcome to a quick look, well it won't be a quick look, it'll probably be a good 10 or 12 minutes long, at a sharpness test on the Nikon 70-200 f4 lens. I bought this lens for my subscribers. This is actually more for my subscribers than people who will bump into this video maybe just looking for a review or something like that of the lens. All we're going to look at, as spoiler alert, is this wall, and we're going to look at the sharpness from the centre out to the edges, and we're going to see how it performs. That's all we're going to do in this test. That's all we need to do to see if it's sharp in the middle and sharp on the edges. But I have shot it on a Nikon D500, and I've also used it on my Z6 with the FTZ mirrorless adapter. But we'll start off on the D500 and we'll have a quick look. I took a series of shots at 70mm, 102mm for some strange reason, that's just what it came out at. 135 and 200mm, we did f4, 5, 6, 8 and 11. I didn't bother going above that. The light was very dark, so you'll see in a minute when we get onto the Z6, I had to go to ISO 400, which could have affected sharpness slightly, but I don't think so, not at ISO 400. So starting straight off on the D500 at 70mm, the settings, I'm pointing with my bloody hand, the settings are up here. If you just take a look at that, I'll just wobble the mouse, you'll see that the settings are there. So anyway, if we zoom into the middle, which I focused on this little hole here, you'll see that at 7, I'll just shift tab, get rid of the windows, you'll see that it's absolutely dark. It's absolutely dark. It's absolutely sharp from corner to corner. We'll now go to 5.6. Just before I continue, I'll show you that there's a f4 through the full focal range. That's your vignetting on a crop sensor camera. It's a little bit worse on the full frame, which you'll see in a minute, but it gets at 5.6, it's near enough gone. So with that being said, we'll jump straight up to 5.6. We'll have a little look at corner sharpness there too. And again, that looks great. f8, this is its optimum sharpness. I don't really think it looks much sharper. Probably is a whisker sharper, but I mean, even at, let's just go back to 5.6. We'll just put it here somewhere, and then we'll go f8. That's just like that, right? And f8. Yeah, I'd say f8 might be a little bit more sharper. And then we'll go to f11, and you'll see it's got corner to corner sharpness, even at f11. So at 70mm, f4, it's a fantastic lens. That's another reason why I didn't go for the 2.8. Because I know a lot of them tend to be sharp in the middle, but then you need to go to f4 and f5.6 to get it sharp across the full frame. So I thought, do you know what, I'll save a load of money, I'll save loads of weight because it's a lot lighter, it's really light, doesn't weigh a great deal, and I'll sacrifice a stop on the ISO and maybe a stop of background blur, but to me that's not important. The weight is a big factor, and this is at sharp across the board. So we'll now just jump up to 102mm. So we'll do the same again, f4 in the centre, dragging round the image. I'll let you just look at that up in that top left corner. It's absolutely unreally sharp. Oh, just before I continue as well, I wasn't at the minimum focus distance. I wasn't a great deal away from it. I don't think, maybe a metre away or something. I was probably about 2 metres away. I think I probably could have moved in a good half a metre closer. But I never do it at the minimum focus distance, because a lot of lenses you can lose a little bit of sharpness when you're right up in front of your subject. So we'll have a look at 5.6, and again it's the same scenario. It's tack sharp in the middle, zooming in, and tack sharp on the corners too. Look at that, just really sharp. f11. Right, we're now at 135mm. Looking at the middle, lovely and sharp. Let's go to this top left corner. I'd probably say that that is slightly softer than this middle here, where my mouse is. Let's just try go to 5.6 here now and see if that changes. f4, f5.6, 4, let it just load. It's loaded now. f5.6. I'd say 5.6 is a touch better there. We'll go to f8. But again, we're really pixel peeping. Yeah, f8 sharpened up. So 135mm corner to corner sharpness at f4, I'd say it's 80% across the frame, and then the far corners sharpened up a bit when we went to f5.6, but 80% of the frame was super duper tack sharp. I mean, I'm just pixel peeping here. Then we go to f11. We'll now go to 200mm. Now, as you can see, look at how tight that is. And if we have a look now, we can see that this is where we focused, around the middle. And you can see it's probably a little bit softer, but I think this is more of a depth of field issue and a shutter speed issue at that focal length, because even at ISO 400, I was still only at 80th of a second on the tripod. But again, I mean, it's still sharp enough. If we go to f4.56 now, let's just have a look at, go back, and we'll go to this part of the brick, and we'll go to 5.6. Let it load. I mean, they're both just as sharp as each other. I think if I'd have stepped back maybe another metre, that these would have been a lot sharper. But this is the softest I've seen the image. But again, I'm quite confident that they're all evenly slightly softer. That it's just that I was just really close to the subject. So what can I say about the lens so far on an APS-C size sensor? Really sharp all across the board, every aperture. 200mm, and did notice a little bit of difference in sharpness, but I was very close. I'll repeat again, I wasn't at the minimum focus distance, but I wasn't far off of it. So I might run another test later, moving back a little bit to see if that improves sharpness. But again, highly recommended. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do the same thing again, but we're going to now look at the Z6. So the tripod never moved, and you'll see now that 70mm on the Z6, it's obviously much wider. You can even see this cable, which is obviously it's a full frame camera, so it's 50% wider. So we'll zoom straight in at f4, 70mm, and we'll have a look. I'll just show you the vignetting, obviously. But I mean, if you've got a program like Lightroom, you just tick remove lens correction, and then you sync, and you've just done them all. So that it is what it is. But again, we've got edge to edge sharpness at 70mm at f4. We'll zoom in again. Edge to, in fact, I'd say it probably looks slightly sharper on the Nikon Z6. Focused in on this little bit on the middle. F8, optimum performance, edge to edge sharpness at 70mm. F11 is the same. We'll now jump to 102. I don't know how I got it 102mm on both attempts, like, but anyway, we'll go to the middle. Don't forget, this is Nikon Z6 full frame. Moving over to those corners. Super duper tack sharp. F5.6, same scenario. And I mean, if you look at these shutter speeds as well, they're really slow. I'm at ISO 400 just to keep the shutter speeds up, and you'll see it's edge to edge sharpness. Now go to 135mm, zooming in, the middle looks beautiful, and look at them edges. I mean, absolutely full frame camera, remember, so it should realistically perform a little bit softer on edges, but it isn't. We'll go to 5.6, we'll just have a look, and it's absolutely super tack sharp. 200mm will be interesting to see if we get a, I think it'll look sharper at 200mm because of the extra 50% field of view we're going to get. So there's F8, F11, look, 13th of a second, ISO 400. I'd say that's softened a right whisker now because F8's the sweet spot of the lens. But anyway, let's now jump to 200mm, which, if you remember on the APS-C size sensor, it looked a little bit softer than it did on all the other focal lengths. But if we look now, this looks so much sharper in the centre. And if we go to the edges, it is a touch softer on this edge up here. So we'll now just go to 5.6, see if we get a constant result. Oh, so that's F4. Let it load. F5.6. I'd say that's sharpened up a touch. Let's have a look at the middle. Go away. F4 in the middle. Give it a couple of seconds. F5.6. F4. Yeah, I'd say F5.6 does look a whisker sharp. It definitely looks sharper than on the crop frame sensor. We'll go to F8, which is the optimum aperture that we all use, and it's absolutely zinging sharp in the middle, way sharper than on the APS-C size sensor. And the edges, it's edge to edge sharpness again. I'd say right up this brick here probably doesn't look as sharp as it did at 135mm, but it's still absolutely a fantastic performing lens. And then we'll finish off at f11. We'll just have a look in the corner there, see if it's sharpened up any. No, not really. What's the middle look like? Let it zoom in. Probably slightly softer. Ooh, let's go back to f8. That's f8. f11. Yeah, f8's definitely. If you look, I'm trying to point everything. If you look around this brick here, that's f8. Watch it when I go to f11. Slightly softer. f8. But I mean, again, to be fair, that actually could be the shutter speed, because if you look how slow the shutter speed is, it was on a tripod, but the tripod's not really that good. So it's very rickety. So what can I say? At a glance, quick little sharpness test. It's a phenomenal lens. The VR works great. It's sharp all the way through on an apsc size sensor at any aperture, and it's absolutely outstanding on the Z6. I didn't really notice slow focusing with it running through the FTZ adapter either. Obviously I were only focusing a static subject. It may be different if you try to focus on a bird or something, but I won't. I was just photographing a static subject. Would I recommend this lens? Of course I would. You can pick it up for a fantastic price, and if you've got an up-to-date camera, the ISO performance is just stellar on all the new cameras. So you don't. Years ago 2.8 was good because you could gain that lower stop on the ISO, because like let's say when we used to have 60Ds and 40Ds and 50Ds, ISO 800 could be okay and 1600 could be a no-no, too grainy, or 3200. So that's where your 2.8 would keep it around 800 or maybe 1600 instead of 3200. But we don't need it nowadays. We can nick that extra stop from the ISO. Yes, you'd lose the extra stop of background blur, but it's not really critical anyway. And if you want good background blur, you would probably buy a prime like my 85mm 1.8 or the 35mm 1.4, which I'm going to review shortly. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.